It's now time to take a look at our final temple in Majora's Mask. Since I decided to do them out of order, today we're looking at the resident water temple of Majora's Mask, Great Bay Temple. Water temples are pretty notoriously some of the worst and most frustrating parts of any Zelda game. I mean, the water temple from Ocarina of Time is quite possibly the most infamous temple in all of Zelda, but how does Great Bay Temple stack up to the rest in Majora's Mask? If you've seen any of my analysis videos, then you know how these work, and if you haven't, why not? Here, go watch the other analysis videos if you want. But if you don't want to, I guess I'll break it down for you. I'll talk about everything leading up to the temple along with talking about the temple itself. I'll discuss every room in said temple and talk about things I find interesting about, such as the design and music. I'll even explore some of the events that happen after the temple's completion. Without any further delay, let's get right into Great Bay Temple Analyzed. Great Bay Temple has by far the longest lead up to any temple in the game. Heck, we're going to be going into a bunch of different regions just to fully prepare for our journey into the Zora Kingdom. The very first thing we need to accomplish is to get Epona. In order to do that, we need to get a powder keg from the big Goron in the cave and take it all the way to the giant boulder blocking Romani Ranch. This all has to be done on the first day because while you normally can get in the ranch on day 3, you can't obtain Epona that way. After we enter the ranch, we can head up to Romani and Epona is in our sights. I've always found it pretty funny that the parents of Romani named her after a supposedly alcoholic drink called Chateau Romani. I don't know why, that's just always been funny to me. It's like if I named my son Moonshine or something, I don't know. When we get up to her, she gives us the nickname of Grasshopper and talks about aliens coming down to take the ranch's cows. Well, I think I'm starting to see why she's named after alcoholic milk, because she's gotta be drunk or out of her mind, because there's no way aliens could possibly— You know, that one's on me. I should have believed her. She wants Link to help her with the attack and gives us a little target test. After I absolutely crush that, we learn Epona's song, which is what we need to summon Epona. While you don't need to help her defeat the aliens in order to get to Great Bay, I decided to help the little gal out. Once it turns 3 on the night of the first day, a bunch of aliens spawn and you can shoot them with your bow. You can even play the inverted Song of Time in order to slow down the aliens. After a few in-game hours, the aliens stop coming and yay, the cows are saved! We can even go back into the barn and talk to Romani's big sister Cremia, who wants us to help her drive all of this milk into town with her. Okay, fine, one more thing with these people and then we're done. On the night of the second day, Cremia is waiting in a little cart with milk. If you talk to her, we can start a mission, and honestly this is one of my favorite side quests in the game. As we start a peaceful ride into town, the safe pathway is blocked off by a fence, so unfortunately we have to take the unsafe path. While driving, 2 mysterious people, I wonder who they could be, start chasing Link and Cremia. In order to keep them away from the milk, we gotta use our bow to shoot the heck out of these silly bandits. After a couple minutes of shooting, we finally arrive at Clocktown. Cremia thanks Link for his help, and as a reward, she gives us the Romani's mask, which can be used to get into the milk bar in Clocktown. Well, there's just one more thing that we need to do before heading to Great Bay, and that's getting the stone mask. Now that we have Epona, we can start heading towards Akana Valley. Along the pathway, there's a circle of rocks, and if we use the Lens of Truth, we can spot a random guard. If you talk to him, he asks for something to give him strength, meaning a red potion, so that means we gotta head all the way back to the stupid witch hut in the southern swamp. After a short little detour, we grab the red potion, give it to the guard, and obtain the stone mask. The stone mask is one of the best masks in the game because it makes you invisible to almost every enemy in the game, which will become useful later. With all of that side stuff out of the way, we can finally head on over to Great Bay. Immediately inside are a bunch of buildings, with one being over the water. If we start to head over there, the camera shifts on over to the body of Azora in the water. Link, being the good guy he is, heads on over to him and starts to push him towards the land. There's actually a fun little glitch that you can do in this area. If you push him close to shore where Link can stand, you can actually pick up the deflated body. You can run around the beach with this dude and even throw him into the abyss. But I guess we should actually save him, and after pushing him to shore, he starts walking and eventually falls back down. If you talk to him, he claims that he's Mikau of the hit Zora band, the Indogogos, and unfortunately he knows that he's gonna die. Mikau asks Link to hear his plea, and in another one of my favorite cutscenes, Mikau stands up, whips out his guitar, and starts singing. He sings about how the lead singer of the group lost her voice after laying some eggs, and that the Gerudo pirates stole them. He knows he's gonna die, but he needs someone to go and save the eggs, and then he drops down and dies. He asks Link to heal his soul just like Darmani before him. After playing the Song of Healing, another cutscene plays with Mikau walking into the distance with his band. After the cutscene ends, Mikau disintegrates out of thin air and drops the Zora mask. The Zora mask is one of my absolute favorite masks in the entire game, and a big part of that is the swimming mechanics. It is so much fun swimming through the waters of Great Bay, which is good for me because we're going to be here for quite a bit. The building in the middle of the ocean is the Marine Biologist Research Lab, and this is where we'll store the eggs whenever we find them. For now, let's head on over to the Pirate Fortress, and the only entrance that we can go through is by breaking a piece of wood in the water. Through there is the Pirate Fortress, and we aren't going to be doing it yet. The reason we're stopping here is to get a picture of one of the Gerudo pirates. This is why we needed to get the stone mask earlier, because with the stone mask, it's way easier to take a picture of one of the pirates by hopping on one of their boats. Now you may be asking yourself, What does taking a picture of some random woman have to do with getting some Zora eggs? Well, if we go back to the front of Great Bay and go inside of this hut, there's a fisherman and a seahorse. If we go in and talk to him for a bit, he asks us if we have a photo of a Gerudo pirate. After we show him the hot and sexy photo, he gives us the seahorse. Now, why would we possibly want a stupid little seahorse? Well, there's a location called Pinnacle Rock that we need to go to in order to get some more Zora eggs. After swimming over there, we take the seahorse out of the bottle and he leads us to where we need to go. Once we get to the base of Pinnacle Rock, the seahorse wants to help us find his friends while collecting Zora eggs. The Pinnacle Rock section of this game is pretty slow, but I find it decently enjoyable. Basically, you swim all around this hole and go into little areas where there's sea snakes. The easiest way of killing them is by using your Zora magic powers, and behind some of them are Zora eggs that could be picked up with bottles. There's 3 Zora eggs here, and while you don't have to kill all the sea snakes, if you do, you can find another seahorse. Doing that grants us with a piece of heart, and I mean, just look at these 2 little cuties, how could you not want to do that? Before we head back on over to the pirate fortress, let's go to the research lab and drop off these eggs. Now with that done, it's time to head back on over to the pirate fortress. Just like in Akana Valley with the castle, the pirate's fortress acts as a mini dungeon before we get to the actual one later. Our first task in here is to open up a way to truly get to the meat and potatoes of the fortress. On the other side from where we enter, there's a Goron switch that when hit opens up an underwater pathway. The first obstacle in here is a couple of blocks that we have to move around. After that, there's a geyser that takes us up to a room with some bombs and a current trying to stop us from making it to a door. Through that door is another room with even more bombs and some stairs. In this room is actually a piece of heart that can be obtained by pressing the button and sprinting through the door. After getting that, there's a switch we can hit that opens up the next pathway. Through here is even more bombs and currents to try to take Link out. Man, these Gerudos sure do love their bombs because they're everywhere. Eventually we come to a ladder which leads up to the next section. At the end of the ladder there's a button which spawns a switch that makes water shoot up into the air. This takes us up to the next area where we have to do even more climbing in order to shoot a switch. After that we can head through this now unlocked door to go back to the entrance, but this time at a higher elevation. The only purpose this path serves is to take us into the center of the fortress. This is where the stone mask especially comes in handy because there are guards absolutely everywhere. In the 3DS version of the game, the injured guard is actually found in the middle of the fortress, and honestly that's a very weird change. Not necessarily a bad one, just a super weird one. God, the 3DS version is such a weird case for a remake, but hey, maybe I'll do a video comparing the games one day. Anyway, we need to climb up this little watchtower and go through the door at the end of the bridge. Through that door is once again another cutscene that involves the Gerudo pirates. The head honcho and one of her henchwomen are discussing the Zora eggs alongside the dragon cloud floating over the bay. She also lets us know that the rest of the eggs are right here in the fortress. How convenient for us. After the cutscene is over, there's a wasp nest that was shown earlier which we need to shoot down in order to scare away these stupid morons. With them gone, we can go into that room where there's a chest in the middle. Inside the chest is quite possibly the greatest item in all of Zelda, the hookshot. I'm not going to go over every room in the Gerudo Fortress because most of them are all the same, especially with the use of the stone mask. Basically, most rooms boil down to hookshotting onto a piece of wood in order to go into a tank with the Zora egg inside. You do this a whole 4 times, and in between 3 of them you get to fight a Gerudo mini-boss, which is actually pretty fun. Anyways, once we got those 4 Zora eggs, we can go deposit them back in the marine biologist lab. Once all 7 eggs are deposited, they start to hatch and form some sort of song. If you whip out your guitar that you get with the Zora mask, you can play the new tune. What we learn is the new wave bossa nova, and let me tell you something, I absolutely love this piece. With that song learned, it's time to head on over to the Zora Cape where the voiceless Zora singer lies. Once we swim all the way to where Zora Hall is, which I never go in because there's not much to do in here, we can find Lulu, also known as the voiceless singer. She says absolutely nothing to us, believe it or not, unless we play the new wave bossa nova, in which case a giant turtle pops up out of absolutely nowhere. He tells us to hookshot on top of him using the tree, and he takes us all the way to Great Bay Temple. I want to immediately talk about the music this time because let me tell you, this one is a banger. While Woodfall and Snowhead Temple had very ominous and not catchy at all themes, Great Bay Temple is an absolute banger of a theme. The theme starts out with a few bars of some percussion, which instantly fits the factory theme that this temple is going for. After a few bars of the same percussion, a loud bang comes out of nowhere to shock the listener. This is such good composition, and it continues with other bits of the song. Eventually, you get some synth-like sounds that make me feel uncomfortable. Later down, there's whole note chords that sound even more unsettling. This track as a whole is very unsettling to listen to, but also catchy at the same time. Right before we enter the actual temple, there's a stray fairy in here. If you light up all the torches, a chest spawns with a stray fairy. Through the door is our first room of the temple, and man, a lot of people talk about how confusing this temple is. I don't know if it's because of how much I've played it, but I really don't find Great Bay that bad. One of the first stray fairies that we can get in this room is actually just right underneath the platform we come in on. The main gimmick of Great Bay Temple is changing the flow of water in order to progress, and in here there's a lever that we need to push in order to open up a path. There's also another stray fairy in here for just simply killing a Skulltula. After using the geyser that we opened up, we can make it into the central room of the temple. There's a bunch of gears everywhere, and underneath them is a bunch of rooms that we need to go through to progress through the temple. There's a couple stray fairies to get in here, but the main one is in a pot at the bottom of the water that can be gotten just by shooting an arrow at it. Well, it's time to head on to our first room, and I don't understand how people find this temple confusing. There's literal arrows pointing to where you're supposed to go. Well, speaking of those arrows, why don't we follow them to continue through the temple? In this first little room, there's actually a chest that we need to get, and while you're supposed to use the hookshot on the chest, I like to use a little glitch. Since the Zora form is much taller than normal Link, if you put it on in the water, you can actually reach some higher ledges. In the chest is the dungeon map, which will come in handy so much during this temple. With the map obtained, we can now swim on over to the next area, which has a bunch of Deku Babas in our way. If you kill all of them, a chest spawns that contains another stray fairy. With the stray fairy obtained, it's time to go through this door and get another stray fairy by shooting another pot. Also in this room, we can do some hardcore parkour to get the compass. At the bottom of the water in this room, there's another chest that contains a small key, which is the main reason we needed to take this pathway. With that small key, we can head back to the central room and take the only other pathway at the bottom of the water. In this room, there's a lever we can't quite reach yet, so instead we have to walk up these pipes to a door. Through the door, there's some pots and enemies that give you arrows and magic, and then we can enter through another door to the mini-boss. Like Goma in Ocarina of Time, we have to use the camera to look up at this ugly boss that has bubbles surrounding a big eye. My biggest problem with Great Bay Temple is by far the bosses. I dislike them so much, and the wart, which is this ugly boss, is by far my least favorite. You have to shoot the big eye, but it's not constantly open and there's a bunch of bubbles blocking it that you have to knock off first. In phase 2 of the fight, there's no more bubbles on the wart, but instead it dashes around, making it pretty annoying to hit. After beating that annoying ass boss, we obtain the elemental arrow of the temple, the ice arrows. With the ice arrows, we can now access the lever from earlier by shooting them at this Octorok to freeze it. With the ice arrows, so much stuff is open, but if we head back to the central room, we can freeze this little waterfall to access a new area. In here, there's another lever to pull, and if you hookshot to the ceiling, you can find a chest with a stray fairy. Now it's time to head back on over to the first underwater room we went to so that we can continue the flow of water. Using the ice arrows, it's now possible to reach the door, and inside is, you guessed it, another lever. We can freeze this stupid idiot and climb on top of him and pull the lever. As we continue the path, we get to fight the second mini-boss of the temple by using the ice arrows to cross the water and use fire arrows to burn down some ice. We get to fight another gecko, and in the first phase of the fight, you have to traverse around a bunch of moldy bubbles to attack him. In his second phase, all the bubbles make one big bubble with the gecko inside, and he tries to dive bomb you. You have to shoot your ice arrows at him while he's on the ceiling so that when he comes crashing down, the bubbles split apart. While not as bad as the warp boss fight from earlier, this boss still isn't fun. Once he's beaten, a door opens and through it is the chest containing the boss key. Well, now it's time to head back to the very first room in order to swap the flow of water. We can hookshot on over to a geyser, which takes us to the red lever that makes water go the other way. We also have to go turn off the yellow water flow while we're at it. Now we can go back to the central room, and there's a few rooms to access, but the first one we can go into has some cogs and an elevator. If you take the elevator up and then freeze the water moving the cogs, you can now easily climb them. There's also two stray fairies in this room that can both only be reached with a hookshot. In the next room, there's a bunch of scales that can be controlled by water. Underneath the first one is an underwater section that actually has a hidden stray fairy. Using the fire and ice arrows, we can use the scales to climb up to a green lever. If we climb across the green pipe, we can spot a chest that, believe it or not, contains another stray fairy. Past that is a door that we can take to get back to the central room and head on over to the final room. The last two stray fairies are in here, and the first one is found underwater with you having to use the Zora boomerangs to pop the bubble, and only then you can swim towards it. The other one is just found hidden underneath a platform, and it's easy to collect. There's one last lever to pull that makes a geyser flow, and we can use our boss key to enter the boss room. Immediately, there's a giant pit that we can jump down to get to the true boss room. We switch to a first-person POV of the boss of Great Temple, Georg. While not as bad as the twin mold boss fight in Stone Tower, this boss still isn't very fun and continues the trend of annoying bosses in this temple. While it's just like the other bosses with you having to wail attacks onto him, the boss can be pretty inconsistent. You can go into the water and throw your Zora boomerangs to stun him, which allows the use of Zora magic to damage him. Do this a bunch of times and you can move on to phase 2. Phase 2 isn't too different from phase 1 as he just spits out a bunch of tiny fishes to attack you. You still do the same thing as before, and after a little bit, Georg is defeated and he disintegrates into thin matter. After obtaining a heart container and Georg's remains, we once again get teleported into the land of the giants. The giants want Link to help their friend, and Tattle interprets this as saving the last giant, but personally I always like to think this is a reference to Skull Kid instead. Well, now it's time to talk about the aftermath of Great Bay. Not much actually changes with the setting, but some characters talk about how the water will turn back to normal, so that's gonna have to suffice. Let's start with talking about the Great Fairy reward, and we have to use the ice arrows and hookshot to even get over to her. Inside her little cave, she gives us a defensive buff by making it to where enemies deal half of the damage they would normally do. It also has a neat little outline to the health bar. Well, the next thing on the agenda is to use the hookshot to get to the top of this waterfall. At the top are some beavers, and you can race both of them. The beaver race is actually so much fun, and after you beat these two bozos, you get an empty bottle. You can even do a harder race with both brothers again, and if you beat them, you get a piece of heart. There's one more little side thing I want to discuss, and that's the gold Skulltula house in Great Bay. This can only be done on the first day to get the giant's wallet. It's a very fun side quest, and there's even an extra piece of heart. If you talk to all the little skull children using the captain's hat, they tell you the order in which you have to shoot colored masks to open up a secret area. In that area, there's a chest with a piece of heart inside. Overall, Great Bay Temple is honestly a really solid temple that I think gets way too much hate. I think it's pretty well designed, the music is great, and the theming immerses me in the temple. I think it's better than the two previously covered temples, but it's not better than Stone Towers, so Great Bay Temple is going to go right above Woodfall Temple in B tier. Well, there you have it, there's Great Bay Temple analyzed. We've officially finished all of the main temples in Majora's Mask, but there's still one more analysis video I want to do for this game. I want to cover the moon because it acts as a mini dungeon of sorts, and I think it has enough content to make for a new video, and while that one will be on the shorter side, I don't think people will mind too much. I need to thank you guys for all the support you've been showing me. It means everything to me, and we are so close to 100 subscribers, which is crazy to think we're that close to hitting it. I'll even think of a cool 100 subscriber special to do when we hit that milestone. Alright, that's gonna do it for this video. Be good people, and have a phenomenal rest of your day.